Yes, beautiful people. Thank you so much for being here another time. I am so delighted to report that we have a friend who has showed up for the second time on this podcast. That's right, the one and only from Circle Thrice, Ivy Bromius. What's up, Ivy? How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you guys doing?
Living the
Good.
dream, one day at a
Yeah,
time.
could be
You know?
worse. I don't know.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I noticed before we started today's recording is that the moon is conjunct Mars and Saturn in Aries today. Clearly, this was not an election. this, this is
It's
what
an
happens.
anti-election. It's an intense astrospace weather day. It's actually really good for enchantment. Like if you wanted to go lay down some magic, awesome. If you want like calm chillness, not so great.
Why do you say that? Why do you want to enchant on a day like this?
It's just that when the moon is lighting up various planets on a day, it's a really nice day to leverage that energy for some planetary magic, right? So Mars is at home in Aries and the moon is lighting it up. And while that can cause, from just an astrological standpoint, contention or annoyance, hopefully we don't all get in a big fight or something, but it can also really be good for if you needed to do some magic around courage or like getting off your ass or getting some energy to something. You could absolutely do that. And then the conjunction with Mercury on a Wednesday, right, that kind of energy, right, that you can leverage to do stuff. So sometimes it's interesting, and I see this a lot, where something that's not a great election for like normal social engagement or chatting with your boss about something important is absolutely awesome for like kick-ass magic ritual.
It does also feel like, this would be a good day to like dedicate a knife of the art, right? Like the sort of black-handled dagger day, right? Where you want a weapon that is magically related, that is about speech, that is about this as well. That would be a good. And again, that's something you want to be contentious.
Right.
Right. But it's probably better to make it today than on a peaceful Jupiterian day. Yeah.
Right. Well, and this week is the my inner circle, we do a rite every month, right? So every month I cook up, compose a rite for a particular window of time that's interesting. And I pull together a magic ritual and then we all do it in the membership. And we don't exactly get on at the same exact time and do it, but we all do it and then we'll compare notes and I'll do like a report on it. And the one we're doing for this week, we actually like started last Thursday and it's running through Thursday and then Thursday night ahead of the new moon in Aries, right? Which is like wee hours of Friday, at least on my coast, right? We're doing Eighth Book of Moses from the PGM, right? Which is pretty hardcore, where you're calling up the Aeon of Aeons and you're manifesting things, and it's got a lot of like intensity. And it turned out that the timing was really interesting for that because it's just an intense window of time to potentially leverage manifestation. So the way I put the rite together is that every day of the week, you're calling on a particular planetary energy of the day that kind of aligns, right? So the day for this one was like sort of blasting obstacles. And the one for, the one for Friday, I actually leveraged some Spica stuff because I got some Spica materia from Sphere and Sundry. And so I was doing that kind of, harvesting, right relation stuff. So there's some energy to be had, even if the space weather is incredibly intense.
There's plenty of energy, no matter what happens in an Aries pile up like this. It is all Aries, everything. There's a lot of energy to get stuff done. Well, so this is actually interesting because you are in a space now where you are thinking a lot about what I affectionately call doing the damn thing, which is sort of like starting the thing now in order to build your manifestation for the future or something like that. Would you talk a little more about that? Aries season seems like a perfect time to do the damn thing, right?
Yeah. I think there's a so I actually just talked a little bit about this, I don't know, in my on my Substack where I was like, we've got Mars in Aries. We also have Saturn in Aries, and Saturn doesn't like Aries, right? So that's
Hmm.
you know not a happy placement. And so what does that mean? I actually think kind of where you land on that personally is that you have to balance that go get it energy, that Aries season energy with the kind of like right timing and boundary part of Saturn,
Hmm.
right? Because I mean, astrologically, yes, Saturn is tough and has tough lessons, but from a magical standpoint, you can very much lean into setting my boundaries so that that Aries energy isn't stepping on me. I am setting my boundaries. I'm taking right steps, right time. And so there is a lot of leveraged energy. Now, uh, you know, uh, societally, those things are probably that energy, especially through, the 19th, is probably going to manifest in some unpleasant things. Not that you might have noticed, there's some unpleasant things going on, but that doesn't mean that personally you can't still like take it in the positive direction.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if you think about an alignment that's tough, and then you think about what lesson can I take from this? What does Saturn and Aries have to teach me
Hmm.
about, encircling my own values and leveraging my own, because I think of Saturn as the values kind of planet, right? Saturn says what's in, what's out, right?
Hmm.
What do you stand up for?
Okay. Okay. Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. Because I've one of the things that so I do an electional report for my Patreon where I run through the whole month and I give days and times when it's a good moment to launch your thing or whatever it is. And then I also say don't move at this time because there's too much mayhem in the sky and stuff like that. And so that has strongly influenced the way that I do my forecasting also. And so I do daily and weekly forecasts. And what I effectively do is I treat everything like an election. Like if I were going to do something under this sky, then what would this sky be good for? And so I've been thinking with what to do with Saturn and Aries. And so I've talked a lot about it's pirate season and, the rules are not the rules and that kind of thing. But one of the things that came up in a reading for me recently was that Saturn in Aries is really good at front loading your uncomfortable conversations. So if you need to have
Oh,
an
nice.
uncomfortable situation with somebody, you need to sit down and be like, here's where the boundaries are, and I've been not liking it because this thing has been happening and stuff like that. Instead of letting that fester and turn into a long-term resentment, which is what Saturn is associated with
Hmm.
bitterness, but bitterness can turn into resentment in the long term. Instead of letting that happen, what you can do with Aries, which cares so much about right now, right here, right now, what are we doing in this moment? You can take that Saturn energy where you need to discuss your boundaries and whatever, and you can put that right at the front of things so that we might be able to have a little bit of an easier long term situation.
Hmm.
I actually really love that because yes, Saturn is the planet of saying no to things.
Hmm.
And you can't say yes to things in your life until you figure out what you're saying no to. And
Hmm.
that's kind of really the real, and I actually had a geomancy reading very recently from someone you might know, DB, and that was the vibe, right? It was just like, oh, there's the falling apart stuff, and then there's the stuff that you make space for when things fall apart, right? And that's kind of the same thing as when you have that Saturn energy, you're setting your boundaries. You're saying this is what's in the boundary, and this is what's out. And if
Hmm.
you let everything in, there's not room. Right. From a purely getting shit done standpoint, saying no, having a don't do list is more important than having a to do list.
For sure. If you have more than three priorities, you have zero priorities.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The other thing that I thought a lot about with Saturn and Aries was that um is that so opposite Aries is Libra. And Libra loves Saturn. Saturn's exalted in Libra, which at first you might not expect when you hear it. You're like, oh, No, Libra loves Saturn. When Saturn visits Libra, Libra's all like, parade time. We love you because you bring a sense of boundary to our balance.
Hmm.
So I wondered if there was something around that juxtaposition of energies of saying, how do we help Saturn and Aries? We remember balance. We remember the
Hmm.
good times of like kind of the balance of Libra, right? And that's like how we remediate, not
Mm.
what it is, but how we engage with it to make it more to make it as beneficial as possible. Just like you, like the critical conversations, coming
Hmm.
to agreement, stating your boundaries, but letting the other person have theirs. That's nice. And that's not typical Aries energy because Aries is all like, so I'm right and I'm doing my shit. Get out of my way.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I wonder what you guys would make of this. So one of the traditional virtues is prudence, right? And I'm thinking about the combination of Saturn and Aries, but then also Mars and Aries at the same time, right? Like that sort of thinking with there. And so you almost have like a, if you're thinking about like either Shakespeare or medieval period or this kind of stuff, you have this image of the sort of hot-headed young knight, right? I want to charge. I want to go out and charge. I want to do the thing. Like let's we're in our castle. It's nice and safe in here. The enemy's over there. I want to charge out and deal with the enemy. Why are we staying inside this castle? You typically have the sort of old campaigner who, much in that Saturn and Aries sense, is often reluctant, right? Here we go again. I'm too old for this shit. Like this, like that kind of like idea. Now I'm really thinking that like, now I'm really thinking of that Mel Gibson Danny Glover set pairing actually as maybe a Saturn and Aries and Mars and Aries combo. Now that I just said
Hmm.
I'm too old for getting too old for the shit. But anyway, but if you stay too long in the castle, the other side's going to win. If you go out too early from the castle, you will lose. You know, if you launch the knight attacking at the exact right moment, then you will win, right? Like when you combine, and so like that's prudence, right? Prudence is knowing the right moment to strike. It's not holding back. Is that something that's present in this current energy or not? Like as the non-astrologer in the room, like are we looking at a thing where combined it's a case of if you do this right, you get prudential action, you get that force of the hit at just the right play, or is it that like actually that's very difficult at this time period to sort that out?
Oh, that's interesting. What do you think,
I,
Zamboni?
I don't love Saturn and Aries' timing.
Yeah,
I don't
that's what
think
I
of
wanted to know.
Saturn and Aries as being particularly well timed. I think of Saturn and Aries as front loading,
Right,
which, so in the example that I gave was front loading a difficult conversation in order to stop it from becoming resentment later, right? So
right,
that's an opportunity for you to take this thing that wants to front load and make it into something beneficial. In what you're talking
right,
about
right, right,
here, what I would think of is more like the play that I would suggest, like in an electoral report or something like that, is to not interrupt your enemy while he is making a mistake.
right.
So
Yep.
count on this is the moment where not prudence is likely to happen. And so let not prudence happen over there, and then
Right.
you can take advantage of that. That's the
Yes.
strategy that I would probably advocate for.
I like that a lot. I in particular because one of the things I think can be a weakness in thinking that I personally just demonstrated. So, it's one of those things. But is attempting to find the active version of a timing or of a story, right?
Hmm.
The active version of like, oh, seek prudence here. When in actuality, this is a case for a yin, right, or a softer moment or a waiting, right? Let everybody else make the mistakes. Those those look the outcomes of that are going to look similar, but the energy with which you exploit that is actually very different. So that's an interesting. I like that sort of correction there.
I actually think that it's really, really valuable when you're talking about this intersection of, enchantment and astrology to be really clear about what's going on and what you're going to do about it. Because those are two different,
Mm.
really different things, right? Like what's
Hmm.
going on is just what's going on. It's just like what's in your chart is what's in your chart. you don't get to not have a stellium in Aries like my husband did. That's just what's in your chart, right? That's what is. What you do about it is the enchantment side,
Hmm.
right? So if you're looking at, but both of them need to be in play, right? Because what you do about something depends on who you are, right? What's in your chart, but also what the hell's going on. So part of doing planetary enchantment or astrologically informed enchantment is about honestly forecasting and looking at what's going on out there and then trying to identify what that means for you. So my thought process is this idea of grabbing this energy to look at um, manifesting, not just for Mars, but across the planets, right? Because there's a week long, we're not doing 41 days like the PGM suggests, but there's a week long preparatory ritual. And then this night on the new moon of Aries to sort of say, I'm gonna manifest things. But to get
Hmm.
that done sooner rather than later, because
Hmm.
of course you have the Mars Saturn conjunction on the 19th, and that's a lot, right? That's actually, if you needed to like do any really nasty magic, that would be the day, right? Like I don't recommend that. That would be a better day to sort of just chill.
Okay, so this is a great question that I have thought of lots of times. So, do you? So, one of the things that I say at the end of my electional report is to do malefic things at malefic times. So, sometimes when there's a bunch of malefic stuff in the chart, then and you need to move anyway, then just like this can be a time to break out of your shackled situation or to have the fight that's been long stand that you need to have and or that kind of thing, right? So I have been thinking sometimes about cursing. So in the event that you want to perform a curse, do you want a malefic sky for that? Or does a malefic sky make the thing blow up in your face? Like, I don't think that I would enchant, I don't think I would do anything under a Mars Saturn conjunction in Aries because it looks so much like it wants to burn itself up that I would be worried I would be worried about blowback on me for that. So what I would, in my best scenario, then it would be like a Mars Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio or something like that. That's like your prime curse election. But what do you think about that, Ivy?
Well, so that's so interesting. Okay, so because the 19th is the day of the election, and then we have and of course we've got the sun entering Taurus right later in the day. So it's kind of
Hmm.
the
And I think it's
moon.
the moon in Gemini, right?
So the moon conjoins Uranus and Taurus, and then the moon enters Gemini in the morning. So it's
Hmm.
got that other shaking shit up conjunction early. At least from my standpoint, early it's like 8:30 on my coast. So a little later for you guys. And then the moon enters Gemini, and then we have the Mars Saturn conjunction. But the moon also at like 3 in the morning on the 19th, which is the prior magical day, but leave that aside. Like in the night, the moon also conjoins Algol. It's
Hmm.
just a malefic kind of day. And what I said in the planner was, and it's also the lunar day to make a talisman for war. Like it's literally the Hygromantea lunar day for war
Ugh,
making.
Sure.
man.
Yeah, I know. And
Ugh.
my thing was that it's for both offensive and protective magics. So protective workings, but both defensive protective and offensive protective. So like more active protection. And I recommend stuff like Fiery Wall of Protection. If so, I work with Algol. My eye blew up when Venus was on Algol and I ended up with surgery. Like I had a retinal
Okay.
detachment when Venus hit Algol. Like Algol and I have a connection, right?
Sure.
That
And for those
that
listening at home
day,
who don't know Algol, Algol is a fixed star that is associated with head chopping.
Yeah,
Also,
and the eye
also for
of the
those not listening, for just listening and not seeing the video, when Ivy was talking about her eye blowing up, Zamboni looked like he'd been sent to. He was like, "Oh no,
yeah,
oh
it was an
no."
unfun moment. It's an extremely malefic asterism. It's kind of like the eye of Medusa. There's like a whole vibe with that. But I mean, if you needed to protect your household or your child, like hardcore, because something bad was going down, I think protective on that day could really be leveraged.
Hmm.
I wouldn't actually go like curse somebody, but so I'm kind of walking the line between, oh, I could see the protection energy of Algol, and I could see the protection that you might put up in the face of kind of this fiery energy. So if you're in a rough situation and you need to like, protective workings, that could be the day. But like, for example, but I see where you're coming
Hmm.
from, Zamboni, where like I don't ever recommend eclipse magic, like ever.
Right.
And on the eclipses, on the days that the moon is in the eclipse sign, so not just the moment of the eclipse or the day of the eclipse, but like that 2 or 3 day window when the moon is in that sign,
Hmm.
I'm like, pray. Praying is
Yeah.
good. Do protection, like have some prayers because it's just
Inside
not a
hiding.
good time to be throwing stuff like magic around. And I admit that, you know, astro intensity can make for really interesting enchantments. If I have the
May
fuck
we
around
live in
and find out
interesting times.
energy. Right. Like, there's a lot of tough stuff going on, and that might require some tough enchantment.
So
Sure.
there's a story from the internal martial arts. The three internal martial arts are Tai Chi, Bagua, and oh my goodness, my brain just went out of my head. And the last one is escaping me at the moment. It is the spear style. Hold on half a second, team. I will tell you this story. But that one just went right out of my head. Apologies. Um, Xingyi. It's Xingyi. I don't know why that left me. So anyway, sorry. It's Tai Chi. So the grand unity, the grand harmony, the grand making everything else. Bagua, the circle walking, and Xingyi, the spear-based direct style. Okay. So the story goes like this. There are three students of each particular discipline. They're walking along the road. Each one gets jumped by bandits and wins. Like each one wins their combat. The Bagua circle guy goes to his master and he's like, Master, Master, I was jumped by bandits. I used Bagua and I won. And the master goes, But your jacket is torn. Go back and practice. And the Tai Chi guy goes and he comes in and he's like, Master, Master, I won. I did the whole thing with the bandits. The guy goes, But your shirt is dirty. Go and practice some more. The Xingyi guy comes in. He's bloody. His clothes are ripped to pieces. He's dragging himself across the line. And he just looks up at his master. And his master goes, Did you win? Great.
Yeah, you're good.
And I feel like the blowback potential one is a little bit like Xingyi in the sense that, like, you're going to win, but you're going to get bloody in the process of winning. And your tolerance for that, you know what I mean? Like, it's power, right? There's a lot of power there. And by the way, if you get hit by a Xingyi guy, you know it for a long time afterwards, actually. But I wonder about, and so, Ivy, when you're thinking, because you were like, protection, right? Like, maybe not a good time to go out and punch somebody in the face. Maybe a good time to do the rougher stuff like that. Is that because you think straight up and down cursing, like getting in somebody else's sphere just has a lot of blood on it? Or is it just like you're like, man, sometimes you gotta fuck around and find out. Like sometimes you
Well,
gotta get it
sometimes you
bloody.
do,
Yeah.
I suppose. But to be honest with you, it's interesting because I was saying it's for protection, but both defensive and offensive protection. So offensive protection is a really interesting concept, right? So
Sure.
there's a sort of protection where you're like, I am protected by angels, or you can't come near
Hmm.
me, or I am blessed and nothing can harm me and the evil eye can't see me, and that's very protective. Offensive protection is like if you harm me, bad stuff's going to happen to you. So you're not
Right.
attacking anyone, but you're
Right.
saying it's like the booby trap. It's like the moat around the castle. I pull up the drawbridge, you try to come at me, there's alligators down in there. Or sharks with laser beams. I don't know,
It's
however this worked in medieval
it,
times, right?
it's the proper display of a firearm.
So yeah, so it's an interesting thing. I will say though that one of the weirdest things about this, because I've been doing this planner for so many years, it
Hmm.
suddenly occurred to me, like I rolled it out during COVID, like that was a time, right? Everyone else was making sourdough and I like made this magic planner. So I've been doing it like we're going on 6 years. What I found is that there's this interesting Venn overlap between what the day is good for and what the day brings you.
Mm.
Right. So sometimes the day that's great for protection, you find you need protection that day.
Right.
Hmm.
Sometimes a day that's good for social events, you'll find yourself, but and part of it you might be directive. You might be like, I should invite some friends over, but part of it might be just people seem more social because the energy is kind of aligned for that. It's easier to lean in for the good stuff. Of
Mhm.
course it is. It's harder to lean in for the intense bad stuff, but I don't think we should ignore it
No.
because one, my whole angle is not like picking the perfect time. My whole angle is do more magic, enchant a lot. You'll get better at it, you'll learn stuff, energy will move through your life. So I'm very much like pro things. But it's just my MO. I warn people about it. My MO is like do stuff, proactive, take the wheel, foot to the floor, here we go. It's not always the right solve. It's just the way I'm wired. So
Right
I'm
on.
definitely more speary than I am Tai
No, I'm
Chi-ish,
pulling some.
right?
I'm pulling some Xing vibes off of Ivy. That's what I'm saying here.
It's just I wore even more red, and I didn't even think about that. But no, I just certainly if it's going to be intense anyway, the
Right.
question to ask is, what do you do with that intensity? Maybe it's right for you to hang back and just meditate, but maybe that, fiery Aries energy can light up your deep desires and help you kick off stuff that you've been afraid to try or start some project and try and, start the manifestation wheels turning.
That is interesting to me. So, I know that also an important part of your practice is sort of like wayfinding and figuring out what the next thing to do is. I know that you're quite a planner. Like that's who you are in your heart.
Yeah.
Is that you're trying to like get a map of what's going on here, right? How do you think with what is the right thing for me to do? Especially if you are like do more magic, then there's a certain sense of like, okay, well, what though? Like how do you deal with target selection and all of that? Presumably you use divination at some point in the situation, and like what's your method?
So, yeah, so I don't think of it as like I make a map. It's more like I am navigating in uncharted territory because even if you
Hmm.
use divination, the future is always uncharted territory. So it's not so much I'm going to decide what happens, and I would like if that worked because I am kind of wired that way, but that actually doesn't work. I've learned in my decades that that just is not the way it works. What you do is you go a little forward and you collect information and you try stuff out, and then you pause and you re-navigate and you redirect, right? So
Hmm.
the way that I do that is first of all, yes, everyone should have either a divination tool that they use or preferably both, a divination source they can leverage because there's stuff you can't, there's stuff it's hard to read for yourself for, right?
Hmm.
And it's usually important stuff because you got a lot of emotional weight on it. So having a divination skill that you can use and then trade with your friends who have divination skills when you can't do it, right? When it's too hard and you're like, I need help. That's actually really huge. And that is a big part of the wayfinding piece. The other piece of it, of course, is that divination is just one of a collection of information gathering activities. So another one is to look at what's going on out there just with a really clear eye, right? Like if you're looking and you're saying, golly gosh, groceries are really expensive. Yeah, we all knew that. All right, what does that mean? What does that mean for your map? Like your personal navigating? And then add to that divination, add to that your specific domains of knowledge. Like maybe your specialty is herbalism, but one of your friends is extremely good at something else, right? And so, like, add to your network domain knowledge, share information that you have, and create a little bit of a forecast for that. But then the practical piece is that you don't look at that and go, well, that's clearly what's going to happen. This is the risk of conspiracy, by the way. It's when you're like, it's all the end of the world. No, you take a forecast and then you make your benchmark lunar, the lunar cycle of your benchmark. So it's 2 to 4 weeks that you actually plan. You don't try to figure out what's going on at the end of this year or what's going to happen in country X or Y. You're just focused on what you know, what the cards and spirits are telling you, and what does that mean for the next couple of weeks? And that is not only not only works better than deciding that you're going to make this big plan for the next 6 months, and then like a month down the road, it all gets derailed, right? You're planning a little bit, and then you're checking. You're checking, you're navigating, you're checking, you're navigating. Like you test, you do, you plan. It's just this cycle, and it just goes round and round. Short cycle. And that's kind of the way to do that. And then there's the longer pieces of the cycle, because it's like these nested cycles. The longer pieces are where the deep stuff comes in, like your values, which don't change very much over the course of your life, or your kind of long-term vision for your future, right? So when you dream of your future, what is that? Or your deep heart desires. Those are longer term, right? They're part of you, they don't change. But how you do in the world and what you know and figure out, keep that moving rapidly and keep the cycle short, because otherwise it just won't work. I wish it would. I wish I could. I like to plan. I wish I could just sit down, plan the whole year, and then it would just be done. And, it's fun. It's great. But it doesn't. You have to keep doing it. It's like a verb, right? Planning all the time, not a plan that then you ignore.
Yeah, so there's something there about kind of embracing dynamism.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's a very mercurial kind of vibe, right? So it's like nimble and light, right? And you can and that's a cycle too. The Mercury cycle is about 3 months. So if you look about 3 months ahead, you can have some general ideas of the sorts of things that you'd like to sort of do. But the detail stuff happens on the order of weeks, right? It's lunar. You're either doing 4 weeks or what I recommend is 2 weeks. So a waxing cycle and a waning cycle of just taking action on things. Because you're not going to get very far off course or off track. So this is like, what do you do if you try something for a couple of weeks and then you check back and you're like, well, that was a disaster, or this doesn't feel right, or the cards are telling me no, then you can just adjust, and you haven't spent years working on something that was the wrong thing. Or it was the right thing when you started, but 4 years later or something, it's the wrong thing.
I like what you said here, Ivy, about the nesting cycles and the understanding the way that they match up with sort of seasonal and natural cycles, as well. One thing you've said several times here, though, that I wanted to highlight is that you're using 2-week cycles. At my day job and, frequently in dealing with folks, I think that you're also highlighting that people can divine too much too often and not give things any chance to play out. Do you know what I mean? One of the big jokes is that with people who know me very well is that I spend a lot of time optimizing my workouts. I like to fiddle. I like to play around with things. And for a long time, I did that too much, right? I didn't give anything a chance to really breathe and try out. I was coming up with a new idea. Oh, great. Yeah, I got this. 2 seconds later. Okay, I have a new plan. Okay, I have a new plan. It's, go into your cards every day instead of saying I've set a cycle to try a thing, right? And so I just want to highlight that because I think 2 weeks is a great length of time to find out, how are things going? What is this doing? What are the effects I'm seeing? What do I need to touch or move or retest or see where I'm at? I mean, even if you were just navigating across a large body of land, like going, on a long trek, you don't want to overcorrect on a regular basis. So I like that aspect of that waxing waning cycle too.
Yeah, and it's so and it works best if the that short cycle is connected to the longer cycle. So you're not
Right.
forgetting about the fact that, like so because if you decide, I think I'm going to grow a vegetable garden this year. In 2 weeks, you're not gonna be like, oh, well, it's not done, therefore it's a failure. And you're not gonna be like, now I don't want to do that, right? Like there is something to be said for thinking about the bigger things that could be in your future that manifest your values. And how do you do that? But the detailed navigation happens at the low level. So when you do the 2 week cycle, you're not just saying random stuff to do, because task rabbiting, the
Mm-hmm.
fiddling, the constant running, that doesn't help either. That has to be connected to sort of the quarterly mercurial sense of the kind of the seasonal stuff that's important right now, which is connected to the solar goal of like, this year is my whatever, like my Time Lord of the Year, or my, based on kind of what's coming to me this year. And from there all the way up to your values. And that
Mm-hmm.
and that connection helps keep you from bouncing around too much. Now, we've seen, and Brian knows, we've seen this happen at work
Yep.
where the CEO fucks it up because they're like, oh, we're going to do a thing. And then everyone's plugging along on their little cycles and learning stuff and making it better and all of that. And then the CEO comes along like 3 cycles later and go, wait, we're doing a totally different thing, like every 4 weeks.
Yep.
Of course, if it's just you, you're also your own asshole CEO, right? Like you're the worker and you're the stupid manager when it's just you and your life and you're trying to do magic and figure stuff out. But yeah, there's a balance that comes from working in the short term, dreaming in the longer term, and connecting those in a way that accepts the reality of change in the world.
Hmm. That's interesting there. The sort of like shifting vision of what's important here and now versus what's important in the long term, and how to sort of like straddle that, or maybe surf the line in between that, surf the wave in between that, which itself is a dynamically shifting thing to be engaged with at all times.
Yeah, and always to check back in, like when you were like, what, so you want to do something. What do you want to do, right? Like how do you choose? Well, you choose based on your values, right? What you want there to be more of in the world for you and for other people, right?
So do you have a like an explicit way of navigating values, like of understanding what your personal values are and that kind of thing?
So yeah, I go through this a lot with my clients, right? It's always the first thing I do with people. I'm like, so do you know what your values are? Let's talk about them. And because it's really foundational. First of all, I don't think you make them up,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think they're part of you. And I think of them, frankly, I think I mentioned this earlier, I think of them as Saturnian.
Mm-hmm.
So I think of Saturn as the keeper of values because that's what boundaries are. Boundary is saying what I care about and what I don't care about. And that's fundamentally what a value is, right? So I like to work through a process of identifying what people value. And it's often discovered if people are a little like, sometimes people just come at me and they know, right? Um, it's not just something you like, it's something that your heart is longing to manifest, right? So I love the environment, and I don't think anybody here or anyone in the audience is going to be like, nope, hate nature, right? Like, of course, we love the environment. Some people are called to act as environmentalists in a very direct way. They don't just like it. It is something they want to make. Not everybody does that, and that's not a harm, right? Like, so there's people who value beauty. It's not shallow. The world needs more beauty. Um, there's people who value adventure or stability. They want to make more of that for them and more of that for the world, but they're called to act. A lot of times it's uh, who you um, who you admire will often demonstrate these to you. The people who you look at and you're like, oh, I want to be like that person, right? It's often
Hmm.
because they're doing a really good job of living some value that you also kind of feel called to.
So your process of discovering your own values includes noticing which people you admire and what those people get up to.
Yep. The other process is to think about, to do like a journeying exercise on your, almost like not quite your perfect future, in which case I'd be on an island with like, right, like my private island, but just to project yourself forward and say, what would make what would make a really lovely life for myself? And often you'll see values come out of that too, where you're saying, oh, because when I did this 10 years ago, when I first started doing kind of like first started Circle Thrice and stuff, I sort of went through this process. And for me, it was always people around me, right? Networks,
Hmm.
knowing
Mhm.
people, connecting, parties at my house. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, like, yeah, I want a rager. That's my value. But my value is networking and connecting.
Mhm. Mhm. Uh-oh, did we lose her?
And through imagining what would be like an awesome, oh, am I frozen? I'm
You
here.
for a second you
Can you
were,
hear me?
but you're back now.
Oh my God, thank goodness. But yeah, so that's another process of doing it, is to sort of say, if I imagine like a really great future where I'm really like feeling fulfilled and happy, what would be happening in that? The other thing, of course, is to allow other people to have their values, which sounds weird, but what I mean by that is that um, all of our good values together make up the better world we want to build, right? So someone
Hmm.
who's focused on, like my example of the environment, someone who's focused there benefits me. And then my core value, I have the most boring core value, which is competence. That benefits others, right? We all like manifest our values and help each other.
I mean, competence benefits you too.
Well,
The
and
amount of times this week I've lost my phone and my wallet simultaneously is ridiculous. I would love to increase my own competence in locating my own things on a regular basis.
it is it is nice. We
It is
should
nice.
it can be nice, but so many other values are, right? Like beauty is not one of my values, not because I like ugliness, but because I don't have a particular call to manifest beauty. But I'm so glad that other people, artists and designers and gardeners, are, because I love a beautiful world.
I like the distinction between what can you appreciate and what do you feel called to do.
Yeah.
What do you do in things? You know, there's theoretically a fair amount of overlap between poetry and music, but I am not I am not called to make music. I'll happily sing. Do you know what I mean? I'll move around. I'll listen, and I enjoy music. But like, you should talk to Zamboni if you want music in your life. Do you know what I mean? Like it's they. I don't feel moved to make that in any particular way. Even though I think it is important and essential to a good life. Right? I like that. I like that difference between the two things, and separating out for you which is your value based on that. Like what prompts you to contribute something for yourself or for others, but to move forward.
Well, preferably for yourself and for others, because that's how you check that you're not just, my value is making $1 billion and being a jerk. No, that doesn't help other people, right? So like the idea is that a really healthy, good value is one that you can healthily manifest to improve your life, but it also improves kind of the world in general, right? And that's a nice way of thinking about it. When people come to me and they've got like 20 values, I'm all like, no, this is just stuff you like. But which one of these? And it's the reason it's important is remember we talked about like that whole Saturnian thing about saying no. Well,
Mhm.
I'm going to help a group of yoga moms manifest good stuff doing magic, and I'm going to help them be more organized. That would be something in line with my values. Volunteering for the styrofoam recycling drive. I mean, that's a great thing to do, right? Like environment, awesome. It's not my value though. So I have to make choices. I have to decide what's mine to do and what's not mine to do. What's for someone else to manifest their values through, because we can't all do everything. And this
Mhm.
is the network effect thing, right? Where you have people in your community who are all doing good, different stuff. I don't need to become an herbalism expert because thank goodness I know one
Mhm.
who's
Mhm.
willing to I could call her up and be like, it's not the thing, the system, and she'll be like, oh, this is what you need to take. I don't have to know it all.
Mhm. So, is there a relationship, or what is the relationship between value and desire? Are they the same thing? Are they different things?
Ooh, such a good question. So I think, and this is something that has only just become sort of clear to me in the last few years. This values are Saturnian. They're part of your makeup. They're basically a 30-year cycle, which is why Saturn returns are so weird for people, and they often shift their values at that time. Also, the midlife
Mm.
crisis is the same kind of vibe, right? Where you're like, suddenly you're 60 and you're like, I don't give a fuck about that anymore. Your values can shift, but very rare, very slow. They're part of your makeup. Your desires are Venusian. Like your
Hmm.
deep heart desire is Venusian, and therefore it runs on like that 8-year Venus cycle, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's not the whim of the moment, right? It's what your heart calls to on a kind of a longer term basis. So if you are looking at um your desire to live closer to the land, that's not something that happens in 2 weeks. It's not something that happens in a year, right? That could be the work of a number of years to slowly build up. And I think that's kind of the difference.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think
That's
if you look
interesting.
at it through the lens of the planets, it's a little clearer.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and Venus and Saturn, they're better friends than one would immediately think. But you can immediately notice that as soon as you look at Libra and notice that Venus rules Libra and Saturn is exalted there. So that is to say that whenever I explain the concept of exaltation to people, I talk about it like it's being at your best friend's house where you have all of the comfort of being in the home and you get all the advantages of being in a comfortable place, but you don't have any of the responsibility of that because your friend is holding you up so much. So you can go in the fridge and you can like hang out and eat as much as you like and kick your feet up and all that. Ain't nobody sweating you. But when it's time to answer the door or something like that, then that's Venus's job. I don't
Yeah,
like.
you don't have to do the laundry. You don't have to get
Uh-huh.
groceries. You don't have to pay the bills. Yeah, absolutely. I was blogging about this recently about how, I imagine the planets all like they're these sovereigns of their signs and they're on procession. So, when you're at your home, when you're Saturn and you're in Capricorn or you're in Aquarius, you're working hard. You're running shit.
Hmm.
You run that. You got to pay the bills, you got to do stuff. And then you get around to the place where you're exalted and everyone loves you. That's what I was saying about like we throw you a parade. It's like if when Princess Di would come and visit the United States, we don't even have royalty and everyone just fall all. We love Princess Di. She's the best. We're just gonna treat her and she's gonna visit here and she's gonna have a spa. Yeah, it's great. And then the opposite, which is Saturn and Aries, is like hostile territory. You're there to
Hmm.
negotiate some sort of trade deal, a tariff deal. The metaphor is feeling really weird right now. You're there to negotiate a peace treaty.
Hmm.
So, and when Mars joined Saturn in Aries, it felt like, all right, they're coming to the table to work some shit out.
Really
So that's kind of how I
interesting.
was envisioning it, right? Because Mars is the boss and Saturn is visiting, but he's not like it's not like Princess Di in the United States, right? It's like, we don't, right? It's like Osama
Yeah,
bin Laden visits, and we're like, that feels weird. We don't like that,
right,
right?
right. Yeah,
So yeah, I was imagining them. They're both in the same sign. Where are they talking? What are they talking about?
sure. Yeah, I imagine it's going to be something like working it out, like we're working it out outside of the bar. So
Yeah.
like we're a couple of
Yeah, we could
there's
take a
some
we could take a little walk.
yeah, for sure. We'll see how
Right.
everybody feels when we come back. You know?
I really like the image of being in your best friend's house, though. That's kind of, yeah, I was sort of I was thinking of it similarly on like the I'm a royal visiting the kingdom vibe, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same vibes for sure. Yeah, and so there's I like this framing of Saturn as value and Venus as desire. The way that I was thinking about that is like so we were talking about value as a process of discovery, and I've been thinking about desire a lot as a process of discovery. Like one of the things that I'm teaching some magic right now, and one of the things that I get into when I talk about target selection is you have to have a certain sense of humility and just know that you don't know what the fuck you want. And so if you can get with that and then understand that discovering desire is part of what you're going to have to do, then that's going to be. But I also think of discovering desire as kind of an endless process. It's something where you like, you do I ever really know what my heart wants, you know? And like it's a process of revelation consistently. But it sounds like you have a model that sort of treats values as firm, as foundational, and maybe not endlessly discoverable. What do you think about that?
I think that they can be I think that they can be discoverable. I think that why we're here is to figure shit out, right? Like because we don't know, right? And there's a lot we don't know. You're absolutely right. Like you don't know what you really want, you don't know what you really care about. They're endlessly discoverable. I just don't think they change rapidly. I mean, if you think
Hmm.
about it as like on the Saturnian cycle, you're not like, I'm the kind of person who really values, let's say you really value stability for whatever reason. You like to make a stable environment where people can feel safe, right? That where you know you've built a home where you feel like your children can be steady. If that's your and that sounds great, but like somebody else might value adventure and be like hashtag boat van life with their kids, and that is also cool, right? So this is not a judgment, but if you value stability, it's probably not going to change at the drop of a hat. You're probably not going to be like totally valuing stability. This makes me feel great. Hey, you know what I'm going to do? So I think that it's not that they're not endlessly discoverable so much as I just don't think they change super rapidly. I think
Hmm.
they're kind of like part of your makeup. Whereas I think you were saying discovering desire. I think about desire just growing.
Hmm.
Like these are seeds that you grow, and so you have to spend some time growing it into a plant, and then you're like, hey, that was this is a desire I'm sort of growing from within me, and then you have another one. And so you should have a longer cycle of that. But in particular with desires, I think people often um, you can look at people in terms of their values, you can often look at their hangups. And when I say people, I mean me too. So just to be clear, you can look at people's hangups or where they get stuck and stuff, and their desire and their values are hidden in there. The problem with desires is a little bit different because I think that our society in particular is like, but don't you want this shiny object? Isn't this car what you desire? Isn't
Hmm.
this hot girlfriend what you desire? Like it keeps trying to like it's very capitalist to sort of be like, here's what you want, isn't it? And so it's a real struggle to look under that and go, what's my heart really calling to?
This is where, for me, I see the value as the tool that opens up that desire for you. So, if you are, you're doing that continual process, but you are presented with the sort of what I often call like cigarette desires, right? Like, this I'm given a product instead of what I actually need or actually want. I'm given something that doesn't quite satisfy me. Oscar Wilde's thing is that cigarettes are the perfect thing because they never satisfy you. Like that's the that's the false desire, right? Like there's something deeper than that. But how do you determine that? Like, listen, man, there have been times in my life when, in my case, it's usually cigars rather than cigarettes. But a good cigar was exactly what I desired, and that moment, it really was. But how do I know the difference? And for me, that's where the value becomes the very useful tool for figuring that out. It's like if you value freedom and you find that all your time is constrained by how you're scrolling on your phone, perhaps your desire for connection or whatever isn't being properly serviced because your value isn't contained in that moment. And so it can sort of like a can opener to crack you out, or a lockpick to crack you out of, or move you to the next one. Just, maybe it's a growing thing. It doesn't have to always be negative too. It could just be like, oh, I liked the freedom I found in this particular thing. I'm going to continue to use that to move to the next thing,
It's really interesting that, I mean, if we think about astrology in general, it is a set of tools and guidance that's meant to help understand ourselves and the world, and right. It's not meant to like be totally restrictive, right? Like, no, I mean, there's real stuff in your chart, but the idea that like, well, you were born in whatever, so you're just fucked. No, I mean, it's supposed to be kind of like a flexible model you can use to help figure shit out, just like so much of magic. And this sort of model that I've been building around these nested cycles of values and vision and desire and all of that are the same way. It's meant to be a tool to sort of help you explore who you are and what you want in a really authentic way. I think the concept of like the cigarette desire is interesting. And the thing that made me think of is when you're pregnant, they tell you that if there's something in particular that you are sort of craving, you should probably have that. But of course, I will still crave chocolate and Doritos even when I'm pregnant. And I'm thinking probably I don't have a Dorito deficiency.
I disagree entirely. As an American, we are all suffering from Dorito deficiencies at various
Serious
points in
Dorito
time.
deficiency.
Whatever they put in that is definitely in the groundwater. Like we.
Crack.
Did your pregnant wife put you up to that?
But you see that's there's truth to it, that you will desire and crave things that you need in your heart, or in the case of like being pregnant, you need to grow a baby. But there's also desires that aren't so useful. And part of the process is just sorting it out. Your values are one of the tools. The other tools are more practical too, like, your vision, your long-term vision of your future. Imagine like you in 12 years. Now, why did I pick 12 years? You can kind of guess it's Jupiterian, right? Vision, looking far. It's a, if I look out at 12 years from now and I imagine my long-term vision, what do I need to do now to sort of make that be as positive and good as it can be? And you're not going to know everything, right? Like, because it's too far away, it's too big. But as you go down the cycles, you get down to the ground, and then you can kind of know. And you've linked the busy shit you do every morning to your mission, your values, your vision. And if you can do that, if you can remember to do that, make a habit of that, it's incredibly powerful, right? Because when you're in the throes of just getting shit done, like when we all wake up tomorrow and we're not doing this and, talking loftily about these things, we're like, oh, I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got an appointment, and I got a meeting. You're not thinking about those things. But if you could take a moment, a pause at the beginning of that little cycle and say, what do I want to work on for the next couple of weeks? And how does that connect to the things that I'm exploring about my values, my vision, all of those, my deep desires? And then it brings meaning to the day-to-day, but it also helps keep you from getting off track.
So this is something that you help people through, right? You help people to navigate this. I know that you have a membership and you have an incubator also that you have going on, and you're trying to do more of those. So like, would you just give us a little rundown of like how you do your thing and how we can get in on some of this?
So everything I do is at this sort of like Venn diagram overlap of the practical organizational management stuff and the woo magic forecasting stuff. And in the area of overlap, there is a ton of power. And everything I do is around that. So yeah, I have a membership that has a magical planner. I also have a series of courses which you can uplevel the membership and get or just purchase that talks about this entire system of like setting goals that are enchantable, understanding your values better, uh, getting shit done on the day to day, dealing with risk. One of I think the most useful things I've done for the times that we're in is this. It was a book. Now it's a course called Risky Business, which is about magical risk management. So, which is
Hmm.
like when you're worried or shit's going sideways, what magic is good for that? So that's all, they all form kind of part of a system, which I call kind of like my circle method. And I have a series of courses on that. And then, in addition, I have the more intensives. I do these, what I call incubation arcs, where me and a small group hang out weekly for 9 months and incubate things. I'm doing a venture one right now where we're all incubating new businesses and new business ideas. And they're very small, right? And then I do one-on-one consulting and even business consulting. So, but everything I do is aligned around that from the top to the bottom. So if someone was curious about it and wanted to give it a try, they could just drop their email and get a little guide on the kinds of magics you want to do to be agile and flexible. And
Hmm.
they can join and check out the membership for free and kind of take a look at the planner and the monthly rituals and kind of the video deep dives and see if it might be for them.
I will just say, as a moment, Ivy, because you talked about a bunch of different things there, but I will say we've talked a little bit about the rituals. The rituals are fun. The rituals are really interesting. It is a lot of really fun magic. And I think a lot of times for people, particularly folks who have done some magic, tried some things out, you've done your sigils, you played around, you got some candle magic under your belt. The chance to sit down and do something that ranges quite a bit. Like some of it is much lighter weight. Some of it is, as you were saying, full Eighth Book of Moses kind of material. But it's very accessible way to get into what I would describe as not necessarily purely ceremonial, but more ritualized magic, like going through a formal process with that. It's a very eclectic but consistent way to approach that. So it's something that I think, we talk a lot about the planner because I think the planner is great, and we talk a lot about the astro, but like the rituals are something that are really usually a very beautiful and lovely one. Marissa and I did one when we were traveling recently that was a Helios rite that we, not to give too many secrets away, but we pulled over on the side of the road and ended up doing it behind this visitor center in the middle of nowhere in Virginia. And it's the kind of thing that can light up an adventure in its own particular way, right? It becomes a little adventure within an adventure. So just something for people, if you haven't tried that aspect yet, it's really worth your time.
Yeah, I have a little mini course that anyone who gets close to my stuff does, which is about doing more magic, because again, that's my pitch. And one of the things that I'm into is this kind of like modular framework for putting together enchantments. And I've done a monthly rite. This year I did a monthly rite all last year. So there's like starting January 25, there's one for every month. The December January one was a double one. And I'm continuing it. And the reason for it which you might find funny, is because I had a personal annual goal. One of my solar goals for 2025 was to do more large scale magic because I had
Right.
gotten into doing a ton of sigils and a ton of little kitchen witchery. And I was like, I want to do some big spells. So the best way to do that for me is to make myself a deadline. And so I decided that I was going to do one every month and I was
Absolutely.
going to put it out to other people to do. And now it's become something of like an inner circle grimoire where when you join, you get all of them. So you want to do a speaker right for something? I've got that. All you need to do is adjust it for a different timing. We've done Fairy Queen rites. We've done really like pagan witchy stuff. We've done PGM. We did that weird yoga ritual, which is probably the most different for me. And actually, I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. I mean, mantras and mudras and all of that, the yoga poses. And yeah, it's been great. So I love that people are doing those. It makes me so happy to hear that you enjoy that.
It was super fun.
So you've got rituals that come out every month, right? And that's for your inner circle membership, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, the base membership. So even if you're just starting out and it's like, I don't know, it's like $13 a month, you get the rituals and the planner that you can print or have on your phone that suggests magic for the day. And then I do always do like a deep dive, a couple times a month, I do a deep dive video and then the free courses and stuff. So there's, kind of like the package of things you get.
It's a real value. It's like I should let everybody else know I'm constantly trying to get Ivy to raise her prices, so you should do that before I convince her to do that. You know what I mean? Like I'm on her on a regular basis, so you should get in fast before I'm very persuasive, everybody. Like just
Well, I mean, one of my it's not even my value, it's sort of like my mission, right? Like my level up, like what I think my life's mission is, which I only figured out in the last couple of years, and I am not a young person anymore. So I think like if you don't know it yet, that's cool. Like it can take a while, but I think my mission is helping organize enchantment. And that means that I really need to put those things out for as many people as possible so that people are doing more good magic that works and being more organized so they can get shit done.
yeah, for sure.
Dig it. Yeah, and there's also, I mean, there's you there. This is all at what circlethrice.com, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
everything kind of starts there.
And there's so much there. There, like, so you've got your base membership there, but then there's also another tier on that membership also, right? I know that there's at least one level where it comes with a reading with me as well.
Yeah. So that's the other really great thing I want to talk about is because Zamboni is the official Circle Thrice astrologer.
Yep.
And yeah, and it's because he's awesome, but also because he was getting the planner. And so people would come to him and be like, I have this planner and I want to elect based on my chart in the planner. And Zamboni's like, oh, I know about that. I got you covered. So you can join one of like the consulting memberships where we meet and actually work through stuff one-on-one. And then you get just free quarterlies with Zamboni, which is awesome, right? So like you get like all the other stuff, but also your own astrologer because I'm not a natal astrologer and I want to like lean on the expertise of like the great astrologers I know. And Zamboni, you're my kind of like favorite awesome astrologer.
Word.
All the
Yeah,
other
thanks.
astrologers I know are like, you bitch. Every astrologer I know is the best awesome astrologer, but in particular, yes. So yeah, and all you need to do is like you just go book a thing with him and put in the coupon and it costs you nothing.
Word. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm certainly not the best astrologer you know. I know that you have a relationship with Sphere and Sundry, so there, I am out of the running. I learned from
Yeah,
those
when
people.
I said it,
Those are
I
my
was like,
teachers.
you're the
But
best astrologer I know who somebody could actually book a reading with.
there it
How's that?
is. There it
Within the next
is.
Right?
3 years,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For
because
sure.
yeah,
My book doesn't sell for $6 million.
I have
Every
But
time, every time,
there it
dude,
is.
every time.
Hey, all
there it
right,
is.
all right. You
Yeah.
want to talk about wealth
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah, I
or
know.
generational wealth right there.
every time the economy looks weird, I'm like, I gotta sell mine before Austin realizes what he's doing and actually gets that book published.
He's not
I would
doing that
never
shit.
because the stuff that's in here goes like ends up percolating up into the planner. So I would never get rid of it. But it reminds me of like, so we have chickens, right? And sometimes my kid would be over and going down, it was like a fridge downstairs that's just full of chicken's eggs. And he's like, how many eggs do you have? I'm like, we have 20 dozen eggs. This is your wealth. This is your inheritance, kid. Take some eggs with you.
Yeah, take some eggs.
Word. That's so legit. Yeah, so there's a great wealth of resources there at circlethrice.com. And even if you don't join the membership, which you totally should join the membership, but even if you don't do that, then the blog is super banging and there's
Substack's
a lot of
fantastic.
great material there. If you, it honestly reminds me of RuneSoup in that if all you
That
did
is
was the blog,
fun.
if you just got in the blog, then you would have a plethora of material. You would learn so much just by reading the blog. And if you read the blog and put that into practice, then you would have such a jump start on all of the things that come with the membership, the planning, and the rituals and all that sort of stuff. You would learn so much that would get you going into that space, and you would learn all that for free. So it's
There's a
really a
lot
great
of free
resource.
stuff. Honestly, my little sigil guide is free. The
Hmm.
Cancer Grimoire is free, which is the like the healing medicine magic for people who are very ill, which was based on my own experience. All of that stuff's just there for free. And I realized I've been doing the blog for 10 years now. So there's a lot there. I was looking back through it going, wow, there's a ton of posts back here. I should go figure out what all that stuff is. So but I appreciate it. Yeah, it's always fun to come on and chat with you guys and geek out about astrology.
I'm I'm going to take one quick second just to say I've said it before. I say it under almost any circumstance. If you are interested in magic and healing and thinking with that, you have to read the Cancer Grimoire. It is absolutely essential for it. Like, and I dip a big toe in that particular field of doing things, and people get caught on the dichotomy of must I should do magic for this, I should do medicine for this, I should do and I honestly I recommend it all the time to magical and non-magical people, Ivy, in terms of like how do you actually come to grips with real healing. So it's very much worth everyone's time to take a moment there. And yeah, to Zamboni's point, there's so much free stuff that could get you really hustling on changing your life with magic that it's
The
kind of
Cancer
ludicrous.
Grimoire is free and
Yeah.
it's released under Creative Commons, so you can actually take a copy and for non-commercial use, you can change it, work it, add to it, put it back out in the world for free. I really want it to spread because
Yeah.
it's important stuff. So yeah, if you know of anyone who's got a diagnosis or you have a diagnosis and you want to have something that's kind of realistic and not woo, but also that leverages the magic and the enchantment of things, I think that's a good place to start. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, because it might be the thing I'm most proud of.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a lot to be proud of, which was Zamboni's point, and I agree, but not to diminish what you just said, but it is a wealth. So there's a lot of eggs there, for sure.
Yeah, so all the folks should go out to circlethrice.com and get it popping. Ivy, is there anything you would like to leave us with before we sign off and let the people go?
I just wanted to say that the world is weird,
Hell yeah.
but
What?
magic and enchantment still exist, and there's no excuse not to like get your candles out, get your incense out, do a little something, build a little something. When it's chaotic out there, there's more reason than ever to connect, to enchant, to make something happen.
And not just reason. One of the things about chaos is that it opens you up to upside. There's like,
Yeah.
if everything is rigidly in its place, then there's not as much upside that's possible because everything is in its place. But when everything is chaotic and flying around, then you can catch a gust of wind that wouldn't have been there if everything was perfectly structured, but is there in this chaotic moment. And you can ride that wave all the way to the top if you'd like.
It's true. I often will say what I find myself saying a lot is that the apocalypse is not evenly distributed. Like it feels like a lot of stuff is ending And sometimes it feels like it feels really fraught, but it's not even. So your ability to forecast position, to do that kind of navigation point to point, is hugely valuable, because you can, like you said, you find the upside, you find the safe harbor, you find the place where your skill is valued, where your people are, whether that's literal place or metaphysical place. And then you have positioned yourself for kind of best purpose during challenging times.
I love that. That's a beautiful place to end. People, thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Ivy, for being here another time. This is 2 times. 2 times is not enough. I look forward to the next one as well.
Yeah, thank
Brian,
you
thank
so
you.
much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Zamboni. It's awesome.
Good talking with everybody. Good to see you today.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing what the folks have to say in the comment section. Beautiful people, I look forward to seeing y'all next time. Thank y'all so much for being here. Don't forget to love the ones who are close to you. Peace and blessings, fam. I'll check y'all on the flip.